Hello, I'm Stuart Preston, and this is the Stoned Ape Reports, where I have conversations with those who have changed their lives with the power of psychedelics. Quick announcement, you know about my one-man show, The Stoned Ape Show. Well, now there's a book titled The Grief Trip, How I Learned to Heal with Grief and Psychedelics. You can find it at thegrieftrip.com. 100% of proceeds go to the Ian Preston Memorial Fund to help support mental health and suicide prevention. Okay, back to the podcast. In this episode, I had the honor of speaking with Jared Rinehart. Jared is a certified psychedelic integration coach and volunteers with the Heroic Hearts Project, a nonprofit that connects military veterans struggling with mental trauma to psychedelic therapy options including ayahuasca, psilocybin, and ketamine. Jared shares his personal journey and work with psychedelics. So let's hear from Jared. Well, Jared, thank you so much for coming here with me on the Stoned Ape Reports. I'm really honored to hear your story and have you share the story with our listeners. So first of all, just thank you for your time and your openness to come here and do this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor to be here.
Wow, well, thank you. Yeah. So let's kind of just jump right in here. What I like to do is find out kind of overall what was going on in somebody's life, what their medicine journeys, how those helped, and then how life is a little bit different afterwards. So maybe you could, give us a little bit of background as to what was going on in your life that kind of brought you to your medicine work.
Well, I'm a former Marine. I was in 2-7, and there was a lot of trauma that was in my battalion, and still is to this day in the veteran community. I never got to go on their Afghanistan deployment, but I came on to that unit right after they had gotten back, and I didn't see it at the time because I was so enmeshed in the group. But now I can really see the hurt that was on those guys from that deployment, and to be honest, I had a lot of shame because I was an infantry Marine. I had a lot of shame buried inside because I'd never got my chance to go to Afghanistan or Iraq as a Marine. And in that started weighing down on me pretty hard because that was a keystone of an infantry Marine identity, especially at that time, was to go on a combat deployment. And so when I got out of the military in 2011, I was in a really depressed state. Integrating from being a Marine to a regular civilian was not easy at all. I went from having a brotherhood around me that loved me or hate me, but they were going to take care of me. And I went from having a structured, organized life to having no structure at all. And I had a marriage at the time that was failing because I was so deep into drinking and smoking pot and basically just doing anything I could to avoid doing the inner work on looking at myself and seeing where I was at. So this feeling of not being comfortable back in my hometown just kept growing and growing, and I couldn't really get a handle on it. I was really angry all the time. I was drinking all the time. And so the next option for me was, because I couldn't find a good job out of being an infantry Marine to the civilian world, you have two options really. And you got security guard or police officer. And I didn't want to do a police officer job. I just wouldn't make a good police officer. So I decided to go the contracting route to get out of my situation. And so I put my resume out there as a former Marine, and I had a security clearance at the time. So I went to a contract in in Afghanistan for my first contract. And I was stationed on Camp Leatherneck doing security work there. And so I got to finally go to Afghanistan, which is where I always wanted to go as a Marine, but I went as a contractor. And the funny thing about it is that I showed up about a month after they had a really big attack there. So I was expecting a lot of stuff to happen. We had a lot of IDF come through, but nothing really that I would consider like combat for myself.
Yeah. And what is IDF?
IDF is indirect fire, so like rockets and mortars would be striking the base. And so there were times when like I would wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of the sirens and the explosions happening close by, and I usually just kind of rolled over and went back to sleep. It didn't really affect me. At least I didn't think at the time.
Yeah.
And so when I went back home after that year of being in Afghanistan, I did a year straight out there, and then I went home and came home, and then it was even harder to integrate because now I went from this combat zone with that same feeling that I had of structure and brotherhood and everything else gone again.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back into my drinking patterns, and my drug use went up, and a bunch of stuff just kind of spearheaded, and I started bouncing at strip clubs to make money when I ran out of my contract money. And then eventually I went back to another contract in Iraq. And this one, I was deciding I was going to stay out there. I was just going to stay out there for, 10 years if I needed to. I was just going to make enough money to retire and never have to do this again. So I knuckled under and got debt free and all that stuff, and was on this really great security contract that I was on. So we were protecting people, places, and things out in Iraq. And I was training a lot of the Iraqi soldiers and doing a lot of work out there. And I had 30 days of leave a year that I could take. And so for one of those 30 days, I had been listening to some podcasts and watching some videos recently about ayahuasca. And I was pretty experienced with my psychedelic usage. I had worked with mushrooms and LSD and whatnot. And my girlfriend at the time was a big psychonaut, so she always was providing that stuff for me. Which nice. at the time, the setting I would do them in was more of either a one-on-one with her or like a party setting. So there was no, right. So I got a lot out of it, but I didn't really hang on to the stuff that I had received from it. But it did definitely open my eyes to new types of thinking and new types of being. So I decided to go to the jungle in Peru at this place in Pucallpa, and it's a wonderful center. They do 9-day retreats, and we do 4 ayahuasca ceremonies. And so I was so afraid of going down there because I had heard all these stories of people purging and going through like traumatic events and all this stuff. But at the end of it, everyone seemed to be like on cloud 9 and talking about how they have a different relationship with God and all this craziness. So it just piqued my interest so much that people would talk about such a hard experience, but then come out of it on the other side like clean. So I had to find out for myself. And at that point, I actually have a parable to this. Well, not really a parable, but another part of this story is before I went home on leave for about 10 days. And then I was home. And at that time, it was the first time I smoked DMT. And when I smoked DMT, I had this amazing vision of being in this like jungle setting that looked like watercolors dripping from every leaf and all this stuff. And there was like weird creatures moving around. And then the environment started talking to me in this setting and held me like a child being held by its mother. And then I realized I was in this trip and was going, oh man, I'm having this trip. What happened? I have so many questions for you. And this environment told me to go to the jungle. And that's what really sparked my research binge into ayahuasca. So,
because you got a message from the DMT entities or the DMT experience that said, "Hey, this is what's next for you."
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
It was too real. It was like, how can I not listen to this?
Yeah.
So, I went back to Iraq and then prepared to go to drink ayahuasca, and then I found that place in Pucallpa, and by prepared, I got on the diet, and for 3 months prior, I just went on a workout binge, ate the diet and meditated and all this stuff that people suggested to do before you go drink ayahuasca, because I was terrified. I mean, absolutely shaking in my boots, terrified. So I was like, anything that will help me, the better. So
why do you think you were so terrified?
I think there was a lot of unconscious things I did not want to acknowledge about myself. And
Mm,
I think I knew very deeply that going to do this was going to bring those to the surface. And I didn't know what they were because I
mm,
wasn't conscious of them. And I just knew that I needed to do this, and I didn't know why. But the more I thought about it, the more it scared me. And psychedelics alone, like even before ayahuasca, they still made me kind of shake in my boots. They're very powerful. It's a
mm-hmm.
very powerful experience, and I at that time in my life was not privy to what surrender actually meant, like surrendering to the ocean or the flow of life.
Mm.
I didn't understand that concept because surrender was a 4-letter word for me.
Oh yeah. So
So
you
after,
ended up in the jungle doing a 9 day event with 4 ayahuasca experiences. What was that like?
uh, each ceremony was a different ceremony, like a whole different experience, but all of them tied up like I was going in for a doctor's meeting, and that she was like, here we go, let's pick up right where we left off. Like
Hmm.
we ended this today, so we're going to start this the next day. And my first ceremony was fantastic. My second ceremony was very, very difficult because that was where I experienced my first ego death. In that
Hmm.
aspect, I lost my sense of self and needed to individually let go of pieces of my identity that I didn't really want to let go of because I thought that they were, a part of who I really am. And yeah, but the ceremonies alone, I mean, like they were kind of a roller coaster all over the place, like suffering and joy and happiness. And it's and really to describe them in like a story form wouldn't even do them justice.
Hmm.
It was such a personal experience
Right.
that it's hard to to give out in words. But all I do know is that after those 4 ceremonies, I was a completely different person, and I was filled with joy and love and trust and all these
Hmm.
things that I hadn't felt openly. I don't think in my whole lifetime, except for maybe when I was a child.
Wow.
Um, and those, I think, were the 3 big tools that I got from ayahuasca from that retreat was unconditional love, unconditional acceptance, and unconditional trust. And trust in the process, trust in the people, trust in all of it. And so I learned those lessons in ceremony, and then I went back to Iraq because I
Hmm.
was still on my contract. And so a couple, like 3 or 4 days after I did this retreat, I flew back to Iraq, and
Wow.
I was pretty conflicted at first because I didn't want to be violent anymore in my life. But this job I had at times could require me to be violent if needed be. And
Hmm.
thankfully, at the time, that contract was very quiet. There was mostly just training and patrols, and nothing else. We like I said before, a couple mortar attacks, but nothing in the vicinity of populated areas, so nothing like to worry about. And so it was really quiet, and I had a lot of good friends out there, like such good friends. And I had been talking to them about ayahuasca and all this stuff for so
Hmm.
long that they were just as interested on how I was going to return. So I, just knew I needed to go back. So when I got back to Iraq, the change was very noticeable for everyone around me.
Hmm.
And they all, were dumbfounded by I heard words like, Jared, you're glowing,
Really?
like I heard that, I've never seen you smile like this. I've never seen you smile at all,
Wow.
like, um, and, and so I use those 3 things that I learned from ayahuasca, unconditional love, unconditional trust, and unconditional acceptance, um, out there as my tools, because she had explained to me that these were the greatest and most powerful tools or weapons for a warrior to use. So I went out there and before I was pretty closed off and pretty abrasive. I mean, like someone told me what to do and I didn't like it, I'd usually chew their head off and then apologize later for it usually.
Right.
And I would treat the Iraqis like less than humans.
Mm-hmm.
I would treat them pretty poorly. Like when I was training them, for instance, I would get upset and frustrated with them because they didn't know how to read a map or they didn't know how to do certain things when they're just trying to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I would treat them like really like I was treated in the Marine Corps when I didn't know, like a boot or someone that's less than. And so when I got back, I made the conscious decision to not do that anymore. So I made it my mission to get to know the people around me, to get to know everybody around me that I could, and be kind. So I went out to Iraq and started to get to know everybody.
How did that affect your whole existence out there? How did that affect your experience to come back with that kind of a perspective?
I was still struggling with the concept of what nonviolence really meant, and I understood the nonviolence of the physical, but not really the mental or the spiritual side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking, well, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm professional at. So I'm going to keep going out here and doing this until something else comes along, until something better comes along, or I think of something. And it affected me so greatly that I wanted to see how things would change out there more than back in the United States, because I figured that if I could watch a drastic shift of consciousness happen around me in Iraq, I could do it anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I kind of had this mission because I was surrounded by guys who had been through some really horrendous things in their life and were in a lot of pain, because I now had been aware of the pain that they were in by noticing the pain in myself and the fear that they were going through in life. And so first of all, I wanted them to go drink ayahuasca. That was like one of my biggest follies with integration, was I wanted to tell everybody to go drink ayahuasca. And it turned more people off than it turned them on to it. So it wasn't until later when I realized that it was through my actions that was giving the message of like what ayahuasca did for me. And so when I went out there and treated people so kindly and listened to their stories and had some really deep philosophical, spiritual conversations with them, we became close, really close. And that changed the whole paradigm for me out there. It stopped being a job in Iraq in a combat zone to home. It became home.
That is a big change.
It's a huge change. And what I had realized is that I'm always home. As long as I'm in my heart, I'm always home. So I worked with all these guys and I got really close with the Iraqis. And I still to this day have friends that are the Iraqis that I worked with out there. It completely shifted the paradigm. And for me, I did that for about another 10 months. I was out there probably. And then in January of 2017, I quit that job and then moved to the Amazon jungle to work at the center that had helped me so much. So I then became a facilitator at an ayahuasca center for the next 9 months. And in that time frame, I got to work with shamans and the people out there and drink a lot of ayahuasca.
Right.
So which is just kind of part of the package for living in an ayahuasca center and studying under shamans and stuff. You just drink a lot of ayahuasca, and I had a lot more healing to do. But though my intention for drinking a lot of the times was not for healing, more for insight or learning. But there was still a lot of healing that occurred for me by helping others and to be there. And I will say that after working there and experiencing that as a guest, I will say it was the people that really helped me the most. Ayahuasca really opened my heart up for me internally, but the people around me that showed me so much love and support through that process shifted the whole perspective for me on like what is possible and how people can be treated.
Hmm.
So I do want to say the center's name is Nemakaya. So if anybody wants to look it up.
Okay. If there's a website, I'll try to find it.
Okay. There is a website. I think it's just
All right. I'll
Nemakaya.
put that on the text.
Awesome. So after I facilitated for about 9 months out there and went through a huge drastic shift of not only mental capacity and consciousness, but also I went through a complete physical manifestation because I was eating on a plant diet and all this stuff. So I went from about 210 pounds of like muscle and whatnot to about 175 pounds of very light, light body. So it was, so I lost, and I never felt better in my whole life. I was healthy and clean and glowing and all these things that I had been seeing in myself and others. And the story continues on because the next thing after I left that center, I got invited to do a documentary that is still not out yet, but people are more than welcome to look it up online. It's called Ayahuasca Now. It should be releasing sometime this year from what I've been hearing. So, but this was in 2017 still in August. So I went to this documentary, and it was a documentary about veterans and ayahuasca. And the funny thing is that my whole intention for going down to drink to be a facilitator was I was hopeful that there were going to be some veterans there who were going through the same process that I was going through, because I wanted to give this medicine to the veteran community, because it had helped me so much. And I knew that there was so much pain happening in my community that this is where my arms reaches. So I wanted to give that as much as I could. And we had one veteran come, and he was an amazing guy. But so then I got invited to this veteran retreat, which was mind blowing to me because that was like what I wanted. So, and it was going to be documented. And on that retreat, we did a lot of medicine. We did 8 ceremonies, a Bufo ceremony, a San Pedro ceremony. And it was a lot of work for everybody. And
that sounds like a lot.
And by the end of it, we were all pretty, we weren't really on cloud 9 like I was after my first time drinking. But I think that's because we were just so exhausted from working with the medicine. But everyone seemed to have integrated wonderfully and come out of it very much changed from that experience.
Nice.
And on that documentary is where I met my soulmate. And one of the reasons why I live where I live now is because I met her out there. And then I also met my friend and business partner, Jesse Gould, who is the founder of Heroic Hearts Project. And he was an Army Ranger. And he also had a profound experience with ayahuasca and founded this organization called Heroic Hearts, and then asked me to join him in that mission to help coach everybody through the process of like getting ready for it and coming back from it, and even during. So I have been all about it ever since. I mean, like that's been my passion, my love, my life goal is with this organization and what we do for the veteran community.
And as part of that, you are an integration coach. So you just summarized, you work with people before, and then after to integrate it all. What do you think are the important aspects of integration? Why would somebody choose to work with an integration coach as opposed to just kind of go it alone and go it on their own?
Well, you can go at it alone. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. An integration coach is just there as a person who's been there, who understands the pitfalls of integration. Oh my God, I'm a shaman. Oh my God, I my whole life has changed. Oh my God, I'm loving everyone so much that I'm not feeling much anything else, and it's scaring me. Like, or oh my God, I've had a really terrible experience and I don't know what to do with it. It traumatized me, and you might need someone to help who's been through that experience to help kind of bridge it, to help you understand maybe what the message is underneath all the trauma that it was brought up. So there's lots of reasons to have a person that's been there to be next to you and at least talk to about what your experience was and how you can better prepare or integrate what you learned.
Yeah. Um, if somebody comes, like when somebody listens to this and you're out there talking a lot about these experiences, if somebody comes up to you curious, about this work and wants advice, what's kind of some general advice you tend to give people who are exploring the idea of doing this and looking to possibly try it themselves?
Well, I usually give the 3 coin phrase that or the 2 coin phrase that we learned in the 60s, set and setting.
Yeah, yeah.
So I usually always suggest to them that they do their research and find out what would be the best one for them to work with. And if they were going to work with that, make sure they do it with a guide or a person who's done it enough to be able to just hang out with you while you're going through it. And then make sure that you have had the proper setting. So, and to figure out what maybe your intention would be for it. And by setting, I mean, like if your intention is to do some inner self-exploration, you might want a room that's quiet with some soft music and some eye shades for you to kind of be able to go in. And now, if your intention is to have a good time, you also want to make sure that it's probably in a setting where you're going to know everyone around you and that you feel safe. So probably like your home or somewhere else, like festivals and whatnot are usually not a good place to do it.
Right.
But you can choose to do them if you're going to do them wherever. I just try to be as safe as possible. The way I see it is that I turn into a big walking 200-pound toddler when I use psychedelics. So baby proof your house and have fun and enjoy it and try to go as in as possible. And that's really the key to it is what your intention is or your mindset, like what's your reason for doing this, and then what setting are you taking it in? Is it going to be safe? Is it going to be comforting? Is there a place for you to lie down? Is there a place for you to get water? Just like the basic stuff. You got to think of yourself as you're going to be a big toddler. So
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard that perspective, but that's pretty accurate. I never heard anybody say baby proof your house. That's pretty funny. Um, so what else? Is there anything else you want to share? I really appreciate you coming on here and talking about, your transformation and the changes in you that came from the medicines, your finding of, acceptance and love and trust. That's such a powerful message. Is there anything else you want to get out there? Anything about Heroic Hearts, about your own integration coaching practice, or anything else in general?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about Heroic Hearts. So, Heroic Hearts Project is a nonprofit that literally is dedicated to sending veterans to ayahuasca retreats or to other psychedelic therapies. So, veterans that can't afford it, we provide scholarships and we'll pay for it if they need to. We ask that everyone pay as much as they can because we're still a small nonprofit and we work on donations only. So we try to save as much as we can to help those vets who are in a really tough spot, because as we all know, like depression and PTSD and whatnot usually doesn't leave you pretty financially stable. That's usually
Right.
part of the issue. So there is a website everyone can go to. It's www.heroichearts.org. And if you'd like to sign up, there is a application form on that website that you can sign up for. And there's also more information about our team and what we do and everything on there. As far as one of the things that kind of sets us aside from a lot of therapies is that we do an integration coaching aspect that I have not seen anywhere else. We start the vets out about a month to a month and a half prior with their individual integration coach and group calls before, so they get a preparation phase before they go drink ayahuasca, so we can help them prepare for the diet, prepare their mind for the setting, get their intentions down to a good mantra that they can remember before they leave, so that way they know why they're going and what they're trying to heal. And then we go down there to the retreat. And just recently I actually had, because we're at this point now, it's really nice that I just got to be a coach and then also go down to the retreat with them and help facilitate and participate with them.
Wow.
And that was very powerful for me, and such an amazing bond that I formed with all these people. I love them so much.
Yeah,
and
that's
and
incredible.
And now, and then we do, after they get back, they do about 2 more months of group calls and individual integration coaching, just to see where they're at and see how things are, because life has a way of coming at us, no matter if we just got back from a really wonderful experience or not. So we provide a coach for them to be able to be an ear to listen to, and to help them, guide them through their process of integration. And then afterwards, they're put into our Heroic Hearts alumni community, which we have a couple things on social media that we're working on. And in the future, we're actually going to be working on more and more alumni programs to continue the activities and stuff outside of the medicine. So maybe doing like outdoor stuff or whatever we decide to come up with, but it's still in the works at the time.
Nice. And in addition, obviously there may be veterans out there listening to this who want to get there, and you've given them that. What about people who want to help you guys, that they're inspired by what you're saying here and want to reach out and contribute or volunteer or whatever? Are there opportunities for people to actually get involved in on whatever level to help this cause?
Absolutely. We have started an ambassador program.
Mm-hmm.
And in that program, that we reach out to the ambassadors and have them help out with the things that we need, as far as support or social media outreach or any of these other things. And this too is also an evolving program, because our company's kind of, or the nonprofit's really in its infancy. So it's this stuff is very evolving. So we have a good group of ambassadors at the time right now, and it's growing, and thank God, because this message kind of sells itself. So the best way to get involved with participating would be to reach out with one of us on Facebook, or through my email, which hopefully can be posted on here, or
Yep, I'll post it.
And then and you can reach out with me, and I'll link you up with Jenny, who's the lead for our ambassador program. And to be honest, the best absolute way that anybody could ever help us, and I know everyone's going to know what I'm going to say, is to donate. Donate. Put it on your Amazon Smile account. Put it for your birthday fundraiser donation, or if you know somebody who's really that really would like to help out the psychedelic research or help veterans, please have them reach out to us and donate, because it costs about $3,500 to send one veteran to a retreat. That's for everything. So each vet, it cost a pretty large amount for each person to go. So we only have so many donations, and our waiting list is only growing. It's only growing wow. Exponentially at this time. So we only have so much we can do. So the best way for anybody is to get the word out, and to really donate and give their time if they can.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll help that. We'll put some links on there and see if we can't rouse up some donations. So, anything else, Jared?
No, I'm complete.
Okay, you sound complete, and that's the transformation. So, yeah, truly inspired by your story and everything that you're doing to help people. I really appreciate that. And just want to thank you for coming on here and sharing that with us.
Thank you so much, Stuart. This was amazing.
That concludes this edition of the Stoned Ape Reports. Thank you for listening. Please follow us on Instagram at Stoned Ape Comedy, and subscribe to our newsletter at www.stonedapecomedy.com. Again, thanks for listening, and catch you next time, Stoned Apes.